To those who have been here before, welcome back. To those who this is their first time, welcome. This is a 33,000 square foot facility, brand new, from the state of Hawaii and Leeward Community College, so part of the UH system, committed to supporting our local food and beverage value-added entrepreneurs, being able to take their idea, get it to the shelf, get it to market, get into our communities, and ultimately get their products around the world. So we do that through state-of-the-art equipment, kitchens, consultation, food science expertise, but also we're an educational organization, educational institution. So we are also committed to educating and empowering our larger community around this value-added movement, really just reinforcing the importance for supporting local food as a whole. So that's why we love doing workshops like this. We call this series Value-Added Hands-On because you, the participants, get your hands dirty doing all sorts of stuff. This is our 9th workshop in the series. We do it every month, and we've done it from everything from sausage making to salt blending to cookie decorating. So it's just a lot of fun. And we get to bring in incredible entrepreneurs, incredible farmers, incredible people moving this food system forward. So thank you for being here tonight, taking time out of your Friday nights to be with us. We're really excited. This is the 2nd in our series around canoe crops. Last month, we focused on kalo. Tonight, we're doing ulu. And so no better person to be leading this workshop than Chef Chris Fujimoto. We met Chris at an event where he was creating some really innovative dishes using ulu. I believe we tried a ulu croquette. That was fantastic. So with pickled ulu.
Yeah.
So we fell in love with it. He's extremely talented, extremely passionate. Some of the highlights of his career, I believe you cooked the top Mauna Kea. You're a Kapiolani CC grad. We're not going to hold that against you being part of Leeward. Don't worry, you're all good. And also you've presented on ulu at a national STEM conference, right?
Yeah.
So no better expert to be leading this workshop. So in addition to being part of the Ulu Cooperative as a chef ambassador, you also work with Slow Food, and maybe hopefully you could share a little bit more about that work with the group.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Chef Chris. So everyone, please give him a round of applause.
Mahalo. Aloha mai kako. Good evening, everyone. I am also a Chris. Mahalo, thank you so much for coming out. I'm so excited to share with you guys. So, like I said, my name is Chris Fujimoto. I am an Ulu ambassador. So this Ulu ambassador program actually started a little over 7 years ago with the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them as we go out throughout the presentation, but to kind of give you a little bit of background about myself before we go into this wonderful canoe crop that is ulu. I'm currently actually a food access coordinator out in the Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center. And so for us out on the west side, this is one of our most valuable, our most culturally respected crops, ulu, and we use it all the time. It is considered a famine crop. So I'll also be able to share a little bit about the story of the Hawaiian story of how ulu came to be. But for us in Waianae, this is a really abundant fruit. Many households have this and we eat it. And for us in Hawaiian culture, ulu is considered not only a canoe crop, but a staple crop. Yeah, so it sits alongside kalo or taro. Yeah. But I think I'll actually kind of start to dive in already. So one of the cool things that I want to share first about ulu is this something called an olelo no eau. So olelo no eau in Hawaiian is kind of like a word of the day or a phrase of the day. And so this is one of the really cool olelo that I was taught as a kid. And I think as I've gotten older, I've kind of learned it. And so the olelo no eau is lalau aku oi I ka ulu I ka vekiu I ke alo no ka ulu ahala. And it means you reach for the breadfruit at the top of the tree while missing the breadfruit right in front of you. And it kind of, for me, it developed. At first, I was like, we have these things called ulu pickers. So we have these long sticks where we try to grab all the really ulu in the top, and then you end up actually missing some of the ulu that's in front of you. And it goes into this life saying where it's like sometimes you're reaching for something really high above or really far away, but in reality, some of the best opportunities are actually right in front of you. But it's a really cool saying that refers with ulu about how, look at what's in front of you as well. But also, yes, there are achievements that are high above, but look first in front of you and then start to go above as you progress. Yeah. And so one of the cool things about ulu, as we mentioned, is a canoe crop. So the canoe crops were brought by the first Hawaiians and the first Polynesians that came into Hawaii. These are some of the most staple crops that have evolved throughout throughout everyone's voyages. So as the Polynesians traveled throughout the Pacific and went to different islands and inhabited each island, these crops actually changed, they evolved per the island, and they were brought within each journey. And so one of the interesting things about ulu is that it can actually grow up to 40 to 60 feet tall, depending on the variety. So there's multiple different types of varieties across Hawaii and across the Pacific in general. There's over 200 different varieties in Hawaii and across the Pacific. Yeah. Ulu is one of the most versatile crops. It's considered one of the most healthy starches as well. So referring to, I gave you guys a handout that's the nutrition table. So ulu is actually one of the most nutritious starches that you can consume on a day-to-day basis. It beats out rice, brown rice, whole wheat, it beats out potatoes, it beats out even kalo. And one of the cool things is this is one of the only starches that actually grows on a tree and not in the ground. Yeah, a lot of ours are root vegetables that are starches, so or short shrub grasses. Yeah, so this is actually a complete tree that continues to produce fruit throughout its life cycle. And before I kind of dive into a little bit more, I have a video actually. So I'm part of the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative, as I kind of mentioned. And so I want to share with you the co-op's mission, kind of how we started, and then also, like I said, share the Hawaiian story that we share within our ohana about how ulu came to be.
Ku was a god that came down, and he wanted a regular life. He wanted a family, he wanted a wife. So he went into a village, took on a wife, had children, and then famine hit the islands. And he realized that if if there was no food to feed the people, they're gonna die. Told his wife that he was gonna leave and he was never gonna come back, but that the people will live after he's gone. So he dove headfirst into the ground, and when he dove in, she was crying, just crying over the spot that he went into, and her tears are just falling to the spot. And pretty soon this baby ulu seedling came up, and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew, and then it had fruit. And she started taking all the fruit to the rest of the villagers, and that was his legacy, that Ku gave the gift to the people, was this ulu tree with this fruit.
My name is John Cavalier, also known as Ginger John, and I've been on the island 53 years now, and I've been farming on the island 47 years, organically. So I basically started living off the land, and I found that ulu became kind of a mainstay in my diet.
Ulu is a very sustainable food crop. And what I like about it is on the mature grain side, you can make flour. And with the flour, you can bake a lot of things. And then on the ripe side, you can make desserts. So it's very versatile, very nutritious. My name is Tom Menezes. I've been farming in Hawaii for over 45 years on 3 different islands. I have an agroforestry system, which isn't only ulu, but I also have cacao, bananas, and some coconuts.
Well, our food starts and ends at the farm. Without farmers, we don't have a local food system. And farming in Hawaii is really, really hard. Everything costs more, land is difficult to access. It's just really important that we find a way to support our small farmers. My name is Donna Shapiro. I'm the general manager of the Hawaii Ulu Co-op. I was born on a small cooperative farming community, and when we started our farm in 2015, I immediately saw the need really for a producer co-op to bring ulu into the market in a much stronger way. A co-op is a unique type of organization where the farmers own the business. They're the only shareholders with a vote. They elect a board of directors of farmers. Farmers set the pay price. They set the policies and procedures. They hire the staff, and they have very close relationships with our staff. Small farms have a really hard time growing, reaching scale, raising money, processing, accessing infrastructure, all these things that were really needed to make ulu part of our food system again. And so by forming a co-op, by working together, by bringing farms into partnership with each other, we could achieve all these things. We go through a few real simple steps. We wash and sanitize the fruit, we peel it, cut it into pieces, steam it, package it, and freeze it. And at that point, you have what we call recipe-ready ulu. So we've taken all the challenge out of it. You don't have to be an ulu expert. You don't have to get your knife all sticky and sappy. And maybe most importantly, you can access it all year round. Doing that process enables us to make it really accessible and really easy to use.
The Ulu Co-op is a really special group of farmers that are coming together for this central goal of bringing ulu, to the front of, people's attention for its sustainability and regenerative aspects.
What I like about co-op is it's community-based, so you're working together and you're not competing with each other, and that's what makes it really nice. It's a win-win for everybody.
Food security means that we have the capacity to feed ourselves if and when needed, and as we choose. I think that the people of Hawaii should have the right to determine what their food system looks like and not to have that dictated for them. As we transition and really evolve fully out of the plantation era into an agricultural state where small diversified family farmers have a stake in the food system, it's important that they have an ownership stake in the food system. And the co-op is a vehicle for that. If there's a single lasting legacy that I'd like to see, it's that it showed Hawaii that co-ops can work here, that co-ops can be successful, that farmers can work together.
So the Ulu Cooperative is located mainly in Kona on the Hawaii Island. And so what their mission was, they very much started small. They started to congregate a lot of the ulu that was grown within the Kona side, and then they ended up moving out into the Hilo side. And so they started to pool all these mahiai that grow ulu together. And for us as Native Hawaiians, this was a crop that was found every single home. Everyone had a lo'i, or a mala to grow kalo. Everyone had a nuala patch. Everyone had an ulu tree in their house, right? And so if you look at the current state of how Hawaii is, this disconnect from, especially for us as Hawaiians, the disconnect from our traditional foods is very much evident. And so the co-op's mission was to put this food back, not just into the Hawaiians' hands, but into anyone that calls Hawaii home. This is, like I mentioned, right, it's an amazing food product that has its nutrition value is higher than so many of the other starches that we consume on a day-to-day basis here. And so to have the co-op exist and to put this back into the hands of people that live in Hawaii was such an amazing mission, and they're doing an incredible job. And one of the cool things too is, so ulu is considered a seasonal crop. So between June to January is considered the main ulu season. There are some outliers where some people's trees are on the outside of that. But most of the trees within Hawaii, across Hawaii, will grow between June to January. And so we are currently outside of the season. And so what the co-op's mission was to process all the ulu across that they receive, process it, cook it, and freeze it so that it can be available year round. And it was such an awesome thing to be able to order from them and be like, I want ulu in the middle of March. No one that I know has ulu on their tree, but they have it all within their storage, right? And so they're able to give you a product that is usually seasonal whenever you want it. And that created that demand again for people in Hawaii to start to access it. And the cool thing too is they removed the difficulty of processing, right? So you don't have to peel it, you don't have to core it, it's already cooked, you don't have to guess how long to cook it when you have it, yeah? But that is still a really important connection to have, right? How do you cook some of these traditional canoe crops, right? So there are people like I've seen where they have the tree and the tree constantly has fruit and nobody's picking it. So I kind of like, nobody's home, but if it hangs over the fence, it's free game. But one of the cool things, or one of the sad things, is that a lot of people don't know how to cook it from their raw product. So while the Ulu Cooperative was able to provide it to everyone when it's already cooked and prepared, if you do have a tree, there's still a lot of people that don't know how to cook it from this raw state. And so some of the goals of having like workshops like this is to teach people how to process, how to cook our traditional canoe crops, because they really aren't that hard. You just, once you know how to do it, it's a breeze. Almost to the point where like I've cooked so much ulu in my life that I'm like, oh, you can just do it when you sleep, you know, just processing and cooking them. But the ulu itself really isn't that difficult. You can treat it basically like a potato. So it can be a substitute for anything that has potato. And like how we kind of mentioned in that video, right? You can consume it as a dessert. You can have it as a flour. You can even have it in its baby stage. So kind of like how Chris mentioned when they kind of met me at one of the events that I was cooking for. I had actually pickled ulu. So ulu at a very young stage has almost like an artichoke texture. So it retains a super firm, and you can actually pickle it. You can either do it the artichoke way. I've done it where it's almost more like a dill pickle style. And it's a super ono, and you would think that it's a starch, right? Like, oh, I can't pickle a potato, or I cannot pickle a sweet potato, right? But with ulu, you can, because it has different stages, and the starchiness changes as it ripens. Yeah. So actually, what I wanted to do is talk about that real quick. So this is considered like kind of like the baby stage. Some of the trees, when they're out of season, will actually just only produce this. So they'll never get big. Yeah. And ulu can get up to 20 pounds in size, depending on the variety, depending on how much they nourish that tree. But at this baby stage, a lot of people think you cannot eat it because it's too small, but you actually can. And so in the off seasons, what I've started to learn is that people actually eat all the off-season fruit because they're really small, and they just pickle it. They're not eating it for their main function of like a starch. They're actually pickling it and preserving it. And then as they continue to grow, they'll get a little bit bigger. Even this size, this is still under mature. I cut its life short to show you what the leaf looks like. But with this tree still had a lot more on top of it to go. And so like I mentioned, right, the ulu they increase in size. They can get up to even this big, yeah. But they'll never get as big as like some crazy jackfruit that I've seen, yeah. But ulu is still a really cool product that has versatility in all of its cooking stages. And so this is what they consider, like that small one is what we consider green or underripe. And then as it matures, it'll become what we call mature or mature ripe. And then at the very end, there's a stage that's called overripe. And so this ulu actually, it's technically not at that super overripe stage, but because it was bruised, it can imitate that kind of overripe sensation. So as you pass around the ulu, it's really firm, yeah? So when an ulu becomes overripe, even with your finger, you can just like squeeze it, yeah? And it's still edible. It's not like it's inedible, but the smell of this ulu, it's almost like a custard texture. So it's a really ono, and a lot of people think that like, this means that you should get rid of it, but this is where the fruit part of breadfruit comes from. So it has a really nice, sweet smell to it. And so we use this for dessert applications. So it can be used when it comes to cookies. I've made like custards, I've made curds, I've made different kinds of puddings, I've made it into cakes. So it has this really unique flavor and texture to it when you use it in its overripe stage. And so, even certain varieties have more sugar in them. So that's one thing that I actually will brush up upon when we get onto varieties. But real quick, I actually want to talk about, so one of the papers that I gave you was the climate change paper with ulu. And so ulu has the potential to be this climate change reactor. It's one of the most incredible crops that's found within Hawaii and within the Pacific. And so it has that ability not only to change and alter our environment, but also it's a key for food security.
You know, we are so reliant on the barges coming here almost on a daily basis and bringing us food. And it's not like I want to have a fear-based reaction to this whole thing, but we just take for granted that that food supply is going to keep coming. If something drastic were to happen, an interruption to our food supply here, they say we would run out of food in about 4 days. And so we clearly have an extremely insecure food system here.
This is a very disaster-prone area with live volcanoes, possibility of tsunamis, hurricanes. So having a very resilient agricultural base is important. We believe that ulu is one of those foods that could end hunger in the world, not to mention Hawaii.
One tree is supposed to be able to feed a family of 5 for like 50 years or something.
That's incredible. You start thinking about how many people, just under 200,000, and how many ulu trees that takes. It's really not that many, and it wouldn't be that hard to do. And you know, this island used to be covered with ulu orchards, so we know that it can work here again.
Up until just a few hundred years ago, Hawaii had extensive breadfruit-based agricultural systems all around the state. And one of the best known systems was the Kalu'ulu, right here in South Kona. The Kalu'ulu was a 10 square mile contiguous agroforest that produced an estimated 40,000 tons of food per year. Hawaii has the highest per capita rice consumption in the United States at about 100 pounds of rice consumed per person, and pretty much 100% of that is imported, which means 120 million pounds of rice at least is imported into the state each year. On average, ulu trees produce 300 pounds of food a year, and we plant about 50 trees per acre. So if we wanted to increase Hawaii's starch self-sufficiency by 1 million pounds a year, that's just over 65 acres. 65 acres planted in ulu. If we really wanted to address Hawaii's food insecurity, we have the answer right in front of us.
We emphasize breadfruit in this area. Of course, they grew a whole range of other crops along with breadfruit. So for instance, vauke, or paper mulberry, what Hawaiians made their kapa cloth from, maia, tea leaf, ava, noni. All of these crops kind of compose a diverse orchard or a diverse forest of food crops and resource crops. There's a very well-known phenomenon in ecology that diversity essentially equals resilience. The more plants and animals and insects you have in a system, the better it can deal with severe impact, like a hurricane or a drought, because things can feed off each other. Some things die, other things survive, and this concept of diversity is critical in sustainability.
Food security and food sovereignty are two terms that get thrown around a lot. As far as food security goes, just being able to feed ourselves. As far as sovereignty goes, that would be more of what are we deciding we're going to plant, rather than, let's say, allowing other companies to come in and plant whatever they want, like pretty much we've done the last 200 years in Hawaii.
I think ulu is a really important crop because it's so easy. So it's easy to grow. It's easy to grow organically. It's not just a recent introduction, superfood, monetized crop. It has a robust culture here in Hawaii. There's so many stories of ulu. There's a story that Ku basically gave his life and was planted, and an ulu tree came up because of famine. That's a pretty big thing to do, to give up your life. And it's the ulu tree that grew from that.
Really, all island cultures, and the Hawaiian culture in particular, have a lot to offer the world now in terms of sustainability. And that's because island cultures were worlds amongst themselves. And so I think there was a lot of cultural evolution, a lot of lessons that were learned on islands that are critical now for understanding how do we manage our planet, and how do we do that in a way that can perpetuate ourselves into the future.
So that was I always love that video because it talks about how not just ulu, right, but a lot of the plants that grow in Hawaii, they're here for a reason. And not only the current Hawaiians, right, that the first Polynesians that came to Hawaii brought that, right? Every single island culture has a very similar environment, has a very similar ecosystem within each other. And if you look at like Samoa, you look at Tonga, Fiji, their environment models almost every single one of each other. And Hawaii is the only one that really pushed. Unfortunately, we have a lot of invasives here, right? But if you still look at a lot of our Polynesian brothers and sisters, their environment is still very tight knit. The plants all grow within each other. They have an ecosystem and a balance, and they grow like family. And so ulu is kind of like almost like an older brother to a lot of our Hawaiian plants that actually are a lot shorter. So the ulu towers above the others. It offers shade. It offers nutrients. The leaves fall and they can cover the ground as well for a lot of our plants. And so one of the really awesome things too is that there's so many different varieties. So the variety that's known for the Hawaiian variety is called maoli, right? And so the maoli variety as we say in a lot of the stuff that was brought to Hawaii, they evolved within each island voyage that the Polynesians went to. And then Hawaii was the last voyage, basically. It was the last land to come upon. And so with that came some of the best varieties to come to Hawaii. And so the maoli variety has no seeds, no large seeds within the ulu. It has the most starch, it has the most room. It can grow at a perfect size to be cooked the most efficiently. Whereas some of these other varieties that I have here on the board, they actually produce large seeds on the inside. So when you're processing some of these other varieties of ulu, can get a little bit difficult because you're cutting through seeds, you're having to scoop these seeds out. So you end up having to waste a lot more, whereas the maoli variety produces no internal what we call the mother seeds. And a lot of Hawaiian plants, not just ulu, actually are not grown from seed. They can be. Ulu can be grown from seed. But what it actually does is it produces something called runners. So from its roots that spread out, smaller ulu trees will come from those roots, and that's how they're propagated and replanted out. Just like kalo. Kalo, it doesn't grow from a seed. Kalo grows from a huli. You have to remove the huli, prep it, and then plant it again. And so, it's not even the only one, right? Ava does that. Noni does that. Uala goes from either the potato or from the cutting. Uala doesn't produce a seed. So it's a really interesting concept where there is no, I guess, full seed bank of our Hawaiian crops. They generationally live on within each other, which is actually a really cool and awesome concept. Yeah, the kalo that you could be eating today could be a kupuna kalo that was planted by one of our ancestors like 300 years ago, and that's like the child of the child of the child. Yeah, even with these ulu trees, you could have a cutting from a tree that's from another island or from another Pacific nation that was brought here to Hawaii. And so understanding that pilina, or that relationship between our food here in Hawaii and how we eat, right? Food is not just food to get some energy and go. We have to form this relationship with our food. And so one of the really cool things I want to share also is in Hawaiian culture, a food plant was not just used for food, right? Everything within that plant could be used. And so within ulu, a lot of its trunk could be used to create umeke or bowls. It could be used to create anything within wood. For housing, we actually also learned that they made a very rare papaku'iai to pound. Yeah, and so an ulu board is like one of the most rare ones, because an ulu tree, to cut the tree means that you remove it from having food, but then it gives it a second life to not prepare food. The leaves were actually used as sandpaper, so I can actually pass around some of the leaves. And it was a really cool. Some of these the ulu leaves actually have a much more rough on the outside. And then each of the varieties, the leaf actually changes. So there's some where this part here is really thin and there's huge gaps. There's one where like they're all just connected like this and they're really fat. But one of the cool things too is you can tell that it has a sandpaper too, because it just sticks to your shirt. So they have these really tiny hairs on the back of it. And so there's stories about the Hawaiians using the ulu leaf as a form of sandpaper to sand wood, to sand apu, which is the husk of the coconut that was used to consume ava out of. So it's a really cool multifunctional plant. And then even like the flower stalks that come out of the ulu could actually be used to make a really rare lei. So they used this, and it was almost like a brown tea leaf, but it was a really strong lei that could be worn. And then even the sap from the ulu. So a lot of people actually try to remove it because they think that they cannot consume it. In young children, medicinally, or what we call la'au lapa'au, Hawaiian traditional healing, the sap was actually used to cure thrush. But as a multifunction, it was also used as caulking. So it could be used to seal canoe because it has a very sticky texture, and it was used as a sealant or a water-resistant sealant as well. So it's a really awesome, versatile crop. And unfortunately, we don't fully utilize it as much as we do, as much as our ancestors did in the past, because we do physically have sandpaper, we do have caulking now, we do have other kinds of wood that we use for different things as well. But if you think about how it was in the Valcohico, right, the old times, they used everything around them for every purpose that they could. They realized this could be used for this could be used for that. Through trial and error, they understood what that was like. Yeah. But to dive into more of these varieties, so these 7 here that we have displayed are some of the most common varieties that you'll find here in Hawaii. There's much more than 7 that are found, but these are the most common that are growing, or you see maybe sold at a farmer's market, or maybe given to you by maybe a friend or a family. And so, like I mentioned, the first one, ulu maoli, it's the Hawaiian variety. It's kind of like the cream of the crop. It has the best internal structure. It has no seeds, the most starch that you can get out of it. The center stalk is really easy to peel out once it's been cooked as well. And then even for the skin, you can use it after it's been scrubbed as well. But it makes the best like French fries, mashed potatoes. You can use them in any kind dish that you have for potato, and also has the hardiest structure, so it won't dissolve as easily as maybe some of the other varieties would. Another one is ma'afala. So that's a Samoan variety. This is a very common one also that's found in Hawaii. And it has an actual like a yellow color on the inside. So whereas like the one that I passed around that was raw to you is kind of more like a white, the ma'afala is naturally this yellowish color here on the inside, and it is a lot sweeter. So there's a lot of dishes created by the Samoans with their variety that include dessert. So they're cooking it with coconut milk, they're steaming it, they make different kinds of luau with it as well. And then some of the other ones are puo, fiti, the lipit, otea, and maupo. And then, so I actually have a video that kind of shows the kind of like the pros and cons of if you're ever interested in growing ulu, and also so that you have the education to know the differences between these ulu, because some of them are better for certain places where you want to grow them. Some of them have cons in terms of like diseases that they're prone to. And yeah, we'll just let you see for yourself.
There are hundreds of known varieties of ulu, or breadfruit, throughout the Pacific. Several dozen varieties can be found in Hawaii today. In this video, we will discuss primary characteristics of some of the most common varieties and discuss their pros and cons from a commercial farming and processing perspective. Hawaiian. Ulu maoli, also known as Hawaiian ulu, is the variety believed to have been brought to Hawaii around 1250 AD by Polynesian voyagers. The fruit of Hawaiian ulu is typically oblong, large, dense, starchy, and seedless. Hawaiian trees can grow very tall and should be pruned regularly for ease, safety, and efficiency of harvesting. Otea. Otea is a Tahitian variety very similar to Hawaiian ulu. Its fruit is dense, large, and seedless, but more round, even slightly horizontal in shape. The fruit stem is also short, making it more challenging to harvest. Otea trees seem to grow slower and have less woody growth than Hawaiian ulu. It is important to shape them well through pruning. These trees also appear to be slightly more susceptible to fruit rot and other diseases, which may result in part from the deep groove that often appears around the stem, providing an entry point for pathogens. Ulu fiti. Ulu fiti is a Fijian variety of breadfruit. Its fruit are large, round, yellowish in color, and seeded. Its flesh has a delicious creamy consistency and a much lighter density than Hawaiian ulu or otea. Ulu fiti trees like to have a single leader, making them harder to prune. This variety also likes to shoot upwards after pruning, so shaping the tree into the ideal shape for harvesting is difficult. Ma'afala. Ma'afala is a beloved Samoan breadfruit variety. The fruit develops a consistent egg shape and is yellow-green in color. Although this variety tends to produce smaller fruit than others, it is a prolific producer. The trees also have a naturally bushy shape, making them easier to manage and harvest. However, fruit abortion tends to be more prevalent among ma'afala trees, especially when under stress. Lippet. The lippet variety is originally from Micronesia. Its fruits are very distinctive, large, and bumpy with an extremely light, fluffy texture. The seasonality of lippet is also slightly offset compared to other common varieties, which can help spread out production. Maopo. Maopo is a popular variety of breadfruit from Samoa and Tonga. Its fruit is dense, oblong, and seedless, similar to Hawaiian ulu but more yellow in color. It is not relatively prolific and is harder to propagate as it produces less root shoots and is proven to not take well to air layering as other varieties. Its leaves are very distinctive by their lack of or shallow segmentation. Pu'ou. Pu'ou is a favorite ulu variety in Samoa, Fiji, and Tonga. The fruit is large, round, and bumpy, with skin that feels distinctly like sandpaper on the outside. The flesh is dense, usually seedless, and easy to process. However, it can be challenging to identify fully mature fruit on the tree. The variety also presents disease management challenges as it tends to be more susceptible to pathogens, like Phytophthora. This information has been collected from farmer observations around Hawaii, the Breadfruit Institute, and a network of variety trial sites through the Indigenous Cropping System Laboratory in the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources at UH Manoa. Trials are ongoing. Make sure to check back with the Hawaii Ulu Co-op for more information about different varieties of ulu in the future.
See too how some of them are a lot more yellow. Most ulu in general kind of have that more whitish appearance, but sometimes if you allow some of the ones that are more white in their mature stages, if you allow them to over ripen just a little bit, they all start to turn kind of like this yellowish color. But only 2 of the varieties are naturally just that yellow. So you can imagine if those ones become super overripe, they actually get really yellow on the inside. And at that overripe stage, they can actually be consumed raw. Most ulu at its own, technically I don't recommend eating it raw. You can try if you want to, but at this overripe stage, a lot of its starches have now become sugar. And so they can be consumed as like this kind of like a delicacy. But what the co-op does and what I've kind of learned from them is at that overripe stage, you actually can scoop out the insides, remove as much of the seed as you can, and then we just steam them into these kinds of like discs. And then those discs can be frozen and you can use them for all sorts of like baking applications. So in the picture here, the Ulu Cooperative actually has its own website and it has like a huge amount of recipes. So if you do ever get your hands on ulu, you really don't have like no reason to not make something super unique. We've a lot of us chefs across Hawaii have made a lot of these recipes and we've given it to the co-op. We've been allowed that opportunity to kind of dive into our own experimental phases, and can say that I've really learned a lot about ulu. When you dedicate yourself to one kind of product or one produce, there's a lot that you can learn, and you know by trial and error you find some new dishes, right? So some of the examples here, we know they've made ulu butter mochi, This one right here is an ulu haupia bar. So that's one of the desserts that I first learned to make with ulu. So it models kind of like how if you were to make like pumpkin pie, you can swap out pumpkin puree for the overripe ulu, and it has this really delicious flavor. And then you just season it with a little bit of like pumpkin spice seasoning, and it's major. Like that thing will be gone, like no problem. Nobody even knows what it is in there, but they'll eat it. You know what I mean? But like super simple stuff, like they've made ulu fries. You can make dips with it too. So if you were to puree its mature form after it's been steamed, it has this really gorgeous texture, and it actually is a very absorbent. So it's more absorbent than any of the other starches that we cook with on a daily basis. So when you were to say add it to make stews, right? You can make poke, like starch poke, right? So kalo and ulu poke are like some of my favorite pokes to make. And they absorb flavor so well. And ulu, because of its porous features on the inside, so when we kind of pass it around, there's the pores that stick out from the center, and that's where all of it gets its nutrients as it grows. And so those pores allow it to soak in anything that you add it to. So you can make stews with it. If you make you can make Japanese curry with ulu instead of potato, and the ulu all will taste like that gorgeous Japanese curry taste. Super awesome to try. We've made hummus with it. We've made corned beef ulu patties, garlic ulu mash. And one of the awesome things too is that the Ulu Cooperative started by only selling ulu, but we realized that a lot of this concept with the Ulu Cooperative can expand to some of our other canoe crops. So we've started to sell kalo as well in the same fashion that we sell ulu. So it's cleaned, it's cooked, it's prepped, it's cut into small pieces, and you can buy it at a store as frozen and already ready to eat. We've also done it with sweet potato, the Okinawan sweet potato and Hawaiian sweet potato. And then we've also done it with pala'ai, which is kind of similar to a kabocha squash. So we have 4 main starches that we sell from the Ulu Cooperative. If you can find them, they have the Ulu Coop bag, and then it's usually sold in about 1-pound bags. If you go to, say, Chef Zone sells them in the larger bags, about 5-pound bags. But the ability to access some of this already cooked for those that don't have the time to prep it from start to finish has been really one of the revolutionary forms that the Ulu Cooperative has kind of tried to model for a lot of different farmers, different chefs as well. And so offering this service was an inspiration for a lot of us to think about how do we find a way to eat some of our traditional canoe crops again. How do we make it accessible for friends, for family? How do we put it back onto the dinner table, and how do we get people that maybe never grew up with this eating it again, right? Like for me, when I first time I had ulu, it was super boring. It was not the best thing I've ever eaten. It was just like it was a weird airy starch, and then my dad just put salt on it, and he was like, "This is good." And I said, "No, it's not." And I said, "Push it away." But you know, as now that I'm a chef, I kind of tried to reintroduce it to myself. And so I learned how to cook with it in ways that I grew up cooking. And then now I'm able to eat it in its pure form because I appreciate it a lot more. And so I had done a study with a lot of about 25 participants when I was at UH, and we had people come in, and we gave them a set of recipes with ulu, and we had them try it out. So we had them take a survey in the beginning telling us, like, have you had ulu before? Do you like it? Have you ever tried it in this way or this way? And a lot of people, basically almost all of them, said they'd never had ulu, and if they had it, they didn't want to eat it again. Only maybe 2 or 3 out of the 25 said like they eat it on a day-to-day basis and they don't really care like how it's prepared. But by the end of the study, all of them said that they would be willing to try ulu in new phases because we gave them the ideas and how to replace it in things that they're already eating. And we had done we gave them like a recipe to make vegetarian luau. They did an ulu caramelized like bread pudding. They did a corned beef patty, and then they did kind of like a corned beef hash, and then we actually had them do like a fried rice, like how they do cauliflower fried rice. We did it with ulu. And so it was a super unique study for me to see like I can change other people's opinions just like how I changed my own, because I just decided to try it again. Yeah, and so that's not just something with ulu, right? It's something with all of our canoe crops, and it's with a lot of things that are grown in Hawaii in general, right? Like maybe you had something in the past and you didn't like it, but think of it now as like just be as creative as you can when it comes to a lot of these ingredients, because they're super unique, and if you just give them a chance, you might just like it. But I understand if you don't like it. It's not a problem. I'm not gonna get on you because you don't like something, right? But just give it a chance and just try it out, because these are some of the most awesome ingredients that you can ever have. Yeah. So mahalo. And now we're gonna get cooking. So we're gonna have kind of 3 different stations for you guys to try out today. So we're doing an ulu naan recipe, and the naan is using ulu flour. And then we're also going to be doing an ulu corn chowder. So it's kind of showing you how it can absorb the flavors of a chowder really nicely, and it's a lot softer than if you were to use potato. And then I'm going to have another group that's just going to process ulu. So you're just gonna learn. I'm gonna show you guys how to cut it, prep it, and then it can be cooked. And then you guys will be able to eat ulu as its plain state. You'll be able to eat it as kind of like a bread, and then you'll be able to eat it as a stew. So let's get cooking. I'll start with the raw cutting group, so that I can give you guys back one of your cutting boards. So whenever you're gonna cut in ulu, so you're gonna start by making a flat edge so that the ulu can sit straight. So you're gonna turn it on its side here, and you're gonna cut straight through. So you have your flat edge. You're gonna turn it over, and then you just go straight down. And then once you have your halves, you're gonna turn it back over, and then you quarter it like that. And so it makes it look easy because this ulu is small, but when you have like massive ulu, you have to have like either a really big knife or like a machete, and you have to like go through it. That's why we sometimes we harvest our ulu a little bit smaller, simply because we want it to be easier to cut. Yeah. And so one of the cool things too, actually, is I can show you, this variety is not maoli, so it actually has the seeds on the inside. So whereas the other ones didn't have the seeds, this one does. So this is one of the different varieties that has the seeds. So it makes it a little bit harder when you're prepping it, but it's still completely edible, but you just have a little bit more to do once the ulu is cooked, yeah? There you go. So I'll put this to you guys. And so at this stage, it actually is what we consider green, yeah? Literally it's turning green. So usually when they're at their perfect ripeness stage, the brown is from the sap. So this is a natural thing that happens when you're cutting it, that this brown occurs. But when the ulu is really ripe, it turns a green tinge, almost like a gray. And so this is when it's at a stage where it can be pickled. Yeah. So this is a lot of starch. Like this ulu is super, super firm. But it's still edible, and so you can cook it. So if your ulu ever produces or it's starting to only make really small fruit, you can still cook it at this stage, but this is what it'll look like. And to get rid of some of this sap too, immediately after you cook it, you can soak them inside of water. So it'll pull some of that sap out, and it won't have like an immediate green color like this. And the sap is still edible because once it gets cooked out, it's gone. Yeah. So the steaming process removes a lot of this sap. Even if sap is left over on the outside here, it's edible once it's been cooked. Fully edible, yeah. So this group here can be cooking or cutting these, and then I'm going to show you guys how to cook them in the oven. The next group here is going to be the ulu naan. So the naan is using about 30% supplement of the flour to ulu flour. So it's basically like tripled in size. It was like this tiny little ball here. And so it still does use yeast. And there's other options to make ulu bread where you can actually use physical ulu. Yeah. So you can use ulu in small portions into the dough itself, but you have to remember you're physically adding something that's heavier than the flour. So it can become more dense, which means that if you have yeast inside of it, it's going to take a little bit longer to rise. So the ulu flour is a really good alternative to having to use real ulu inside, but you can if you only have normal ulu. Yeah. You just have to be a little bit more careful. So this one has doubled in size or tripled. And so basically what we do is you're just going to pull it from the edges, and we're going to form tiny little balls with the ulu naan. Okay. And what we'll do is we're going to dust, and this one. So we're going to dust the surface with all of the flour. And we're going to form these tiny little balls that then are actually going to be stretched. So they're going to be pulled apart like this to make that iconic kind of like non-oval, that long oval. Okay. And so make them how you want. I guess whoever this group is going to be, how big or how small you want them. They're still going to rise up again. So basically we're looking for about a size kind of similar to that. So you just roll it in your hand, kind of roll it a little bit in the flour. And then you're going to take You can use my tiny rolling pin. This is a dumpling rolling pin, so technically it's not going to be the most efficient, but we only have 3. So you're basically going to try to roll it out long ways, yeah? So add some flour to the pin. Okay, and you can make them as small or as large as you want. This one's obviously a smaller one because we don't have the most space to cook, but it still does the job, yeah? So you're trying to roll it out in its long form, and because of all the yeast inside, it's going to start to rise again. And then when you cook them, they'll puff up. So they make those iconic little circles that come out, and then they'll char in that nice, beautiful way. And then we'll have garlic butter that we can season them with after, yeah? So once it's polished, it just goes right here on the tray. And then basically as people start to make, you can make like 1 or 2 per person, and people can even rotate here. So I know that not all the stations are gonna have everyone doing everything. So people can take turns coming through this one because there's obviously a lot of dough and there's a lot of you. So we can make as much as you guys want and we can cook them off as we go, yeah? So as you just go, just lay them out here on the thing, and then don't put them directly over each other, kind of layer them with a little bit of a space over. And then we can, as they start to rise, we'll start to throw them and cook them. So as people are making, we can start to cook at the same time. Yeah? Okay. And then for the chowder station, you guys are gonna be cutting up some of the vegetables. So I have, inside of this is gonna be the ulu, the carrots, the onion, and the celery. So I'm gonna show each of you guys how to cut each one. We're going at about a small dice with the ulu being the largest. So let me wheel that over, and whoever wants to be on this like Iron Chef side, you can do that one.
Quick question.
Yes.
What about taking off the skin? And this part's not edible.
Yes. So there's ways where you can actually take the skin and the core out now if you wanted to, but if you do it now, unfortunately, you actually waste a lot more. So when you do it when the ulu has been cooked, the complete fruit is soft. So you can use basically like a spoon and you can take the skin off. Whereas if you're doing it now, you're trying to fight the harder side of the fruit.
So
Yeah. Yeah, so we cook them first, and then you can clean it up after, and you save a lot of the ulu by doing that. And even all of the waste that you do after you cook it, it can be used as compost later as well. Yeah.
This one has its seeds.
Yeah, so that's one of those other varieties that has it. Yeah. And we still like, even if it has a seed, we cook it. Same thing, it'll pop out when it's cooked. Whereas like if you try to do it now, you're like trying to like dig into it. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So this is the ulu after it's been cooked. So these are some of the larger ones, yeah? So these are the larger varieties that I was able to harvest a while ago. So this is 1/4 of one. One of the biggest things that we do is we'll cook it even if we don't need it. You cook it, core it. I leave the skin on because when you freeze it, it still retains it a lot better, especially when you're gonna reheat it, yeah? So I leave the skin on after I freeze it. And then anytime that you need ulu, you can take like a 1/4 out and you can cook it for a meal. And it's a way to preserve the ulu. So you always have it whenever you need it. Whereas like, sometimes you want it, like I said, in March, right? But it's not the season anymore. So if you don't have, kind of like you're building up a reserve of this fruit for yourself, and you can also give it to other people as well in a frozen state so that they also can enjoy it as well. Yeah. So perfect.
If it's frozen, do you have to defrost it before you cook it, or you just cooking it frozen?
So I actually will reheat it from its frozen. I don't defrost it. Yeah, you can if you want to. There's certain recipes where like you let it thaw from its frozen state and you can throw it into something else and it works for that kind of recipe. But in general, what I do is I usually just reheat it in like a steamer. You can even do it in a microwave. It's about 3 minutes on and off. So you're just covering it, a little bit of water inside of a bowl, and you just microwave it at 3 minutes at a time until like you can insert a metal knife through it and it doesn't like pull up with it, yeah? So the ulu itself will still be cooked, but you're trying to get it to a stage where it's heated all the way through. The microwave actually produces a much more drier reheat, whereas like if you steam it, you're getting it a lot more softer and moist. So right now it's a lot softer. When you microwave it, it can get kind of dry, so that works if you're trying to like fry the ulu. If you're trying to make like fries, you're trying to bake with it. This way is like good, perfect for the way that we're about to do it, which is gonna be the chowder. So it's still kind of firm, but it's a lot softer than if I were to have microwaved it. Yeah. Yeah, so one of the easiest ways to cook a lot of Hawaii's kunu crops is actually to put them in a pressure cooker. A lot of these actually do take a lot of time, especially kalo. So when it comes to kalo, you have to cook kalo correctly or like people can get seriously sick. Whereas ulu, you can still partially undercook it and nothing really bad happens. It's more of a flavor thing, flavor and texture. But ulu inside of a pressure cooker about this size will only take about maybe 25 minutes. So because of the pressure cooker and the high pressure, it cooks a lot faster than if you were to be doing it with a steamer. A steamer, they would take about 40 to 45. So it cuts the time in half when you're cooking, yeah. And when it comes to the ulu, you can even cut them up in its raw state and cook with it like that as well if you're trying to make something that way. But I prefer to just have it already ready because it's one less thing that you have to worry about making sure that cooks at the same temperature and time as the others, yeah. There you go. So I'll show you guys how to cut ulu. Perfect. Okay, so when you cut ulu too, right, the bigger the size, sometimes you're unsure like how do you get started. So when I have the bigger ones, what I do is I turn them on their side and I actually just cut them in half. So it's almost more like it's a much more manageable size like this. And we're going for kind of like what we call like the medium to large, or slightly like a beef stew cut is another unofficial term in Hawaii. And so you're gonna take them into strips like this. And then you're gonna run them through the side. And you're gonna make kind of like these small cubes. So they have like this. And then inside of a corn chowder, right, this is already perfect size and it won't dissolve away. If you cut it any smaller than like this, especially inside of stews, these will just disappear. And the cool thing is ulu is a natural thickener. So in culinary school, we made something called an ulu-based. So we blended ulu into water and we made a natural thickener without having to use another starch. And so it thickened like stews. We've done even like stir fries. We made the ulu base, yeah. And so when you add ulu, it's basically, especially if it's cooked already, it's the last thing that goes into a recipe because it's already cooked, right? So anything that's already cooked and it's going into a recipe, it's the last thing that you're going to be doing, yeah. And so this thing, all it needs to do basically when you add it into the stew is just simmer for a couple minutes, and then the whole thing is pau. Yeah, perfect. So I'm gonna give that to you. And this one, so all of this ulu can be colored. Yeah, and people can take turns. Yeah. No, I'm going to use the skin for this one. Yeah, you can eat the skin. Yeah. Yeah.
When they make the flour, do they leave the skin on too?
So there's two different types of ulu flour. There's an ulu flour what they call whole, and then there's peeled. Okay. So the peeled flour has no skin, no core, and it's a really pure white, and that's honestly what we ended up with. Right. But they made a whole flour which used the core and the skin, and it had like this really nice, nutty, kind of macadamia taste. Yeah, it was really cool. Right. And when you cook with ulu, yeah, you can use the skin. As long as you scrub the outside really well, and then you can consume the skin. So it's a really cool opportunity. Yeah. So you're gonna start to just take the naan and you're gonna place them directly over each of the griddles. And then as they start to cook, they're gonna start to bubble. Okay. I know, but the first ones are gonna be a little toasty. And so you're just gonna watch them as the air pockets start to rise. You're gonna watch as they begin to cook. And then you're gonna flip them as they start to turn kind of like a nice golden on the back. And they're gonna start to dry as well, yeah? So they'll create these little air pockets. And as they rise, they char a little bit, and then you can start to flip them over. But you'll wanna allow them to fluff up. If you keep like turning them over and over again, they just end up kind of dense. So allow them to kind of rise as they cook, and then you can flip them over once they have that nice char on the outside. Perfect. So the first ingredients for the chowder are going to be the butter, garlic, celery, and the onions. And it's basically starting off like any kind of normal chowder. Where do I put the lighter? This recipe is 5 times. 5 times this recipe, yeah. Perfect. Okay. I'll borrow your knife. Yeah, so you see how the bubbles are starting to form, yeah? So the heat is starting to force the inside to rise. And then, so that's what we want. We want it to start to cook and get kind of fluffy like that. Yeah. You can wait, yeah. You start to see like the edges kind of start to steam up. You can kind of flip one and see like that. Oh yeah, so that one actually you can. Okay. So we're kind of going for that, and then it almost looks like it's kind of like breathing. Okay, calm. And so one of the important things too is like when you're making any kind of soup is having the liquid that you're going to add in already starting to be hot on the side. This allows the full area to boil a lot faster. Whereas like if you saute vegetables and you add in cold liquid, you reduce the cooking time of everything, and then even it shocks the vegetables that have already been cooking, yeah? So they almost start to kind of fall apart because that all of a sudden you added in cold liquid. So a lot of times what we do is we'll add in the stock or your liquid, whatever is going to be added in for a soup on the side first, heat that up, and then you add it to your main pot that's going to cook everything. Okay. And then the recipe also needs some coconut milk. So the inside here is just chicken stock for now, but I'm going to add in the coconut milk. Where did I put the measuring cup? Okay. Okay. And so most recipes they'll call for either heavy cream or they're going to call for regular whole fat milk. But for the purpose of this recipe, we're actually using coconut milk. It has a really nice flavor and it also pairs really well with ulu. Yeah. And so we're using coconut milk instead of heavy cream or whole cream. And coconut milk also thickens a lot better than the milk does, yeah? So we're using it as a double kind of feature. Perfect. Okay. So the first things that are gonna go into this pan are gonna be the onions and celery, and then a little bit of garlic as well.
I remember half a cup.
Nah, I can do just do all of them.
All of it?
Yeah. We're doing family style.
Carrot later?
Yeah, carrot's gonna go after. So we're gonna, these onions and celery as they break down in the beginning, they'll kind of create that base, or what we call in culinary as the mirepoix. So there's mirepoix in French is usually carrot, celery, and onion. In other cultures, those 3 bases kind of change. But in most cuisine, a lot of it starts with these 3 ingredients as the base for a lot of sauces, soups. And so I also like to use red onion instead of white onion, as you can see. Red onion has a lot less water inside of it. It caramelizes a lot nicer, so it cooks a lot faster. And then that's why you see a lot of red onion in salads and not white onion, yeah? White onion is the one that makes you cry a lot. Red onion can still make you cry, but the flavor isn't as intense as white onion is. Yeah, white or yellow onion. So, and then in Hawaii we do have sweet onion, but I think that's a lie. I'm just kidding. But a lot of times like the sweet onion is used for poke, right? So we don't really use red onion too much in poke, but in like Latin cuisine they use it for ceviche. Right, so that's kind of their version of making poke, in which they use onion as a flavoring component for a raw dish. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we're gonna cook these vegetables all the way down to about 3/4. We just want them to be translucent. We don't need them to be completely cooked because we're still gonna be doing other liquid. We're gonna be adding other stuff as well, yeah, inside. So I have all of your ingredients here for you, so we'll go in order as we go. Yeah. So one of the first things that you can do too is you can salt the vegetables. So you can just put a little bit in your hand. Okay, you're just gonna sprinkle right in. Perfect. Yeah. There you go. And I'll leave this for you too. So it's a reference, yeah. So we're currently in adding in the celery, the onion, and the garlic. So it's about 5 minutes. We're just looking for them to start to turn about translucent. And then we're gonna add in this flour. So the addition of flour when we're making chowder, so in a lot of base sauces, there's something called a roux. So butter or a form of fat with a form of starch or flour creates something called a roux, which becomes a base thickener. So whenever you've ever had like Alfredo, right? Alfredo starts with butter and flour cooked until it's just combined, and then you're adding in milk and then cheeses, right? So it creates this like very nice, what they call a bechamel sauce or a white sauce, yeah? There's other options where if you're making some sort of beef stew, sometimes they ask you to add in the flour and the butter with all of your carrot, onion, and celery, and then that creates a lot of a thicker stew that you're gonna have at the very end, yeah? So this just aids as like a flavor intensifier, and it allows the sauce to become thicker throughout the process of cooking. And also, a thicker sauces means that it coats the vegetables that's inside of it a lot better, even the vegetables or the proteins, yeah? How you think? There you go. Perfect. And I think we're gonna add the flour in. Yeah. So you're gonna go until the flour kind of coats all of these vegetables. It's like yeah. So the flour will absorb all the moisture from the onions and celery that are cooking currently. And then once it does that, that's when we're gonna start to add in all of our liquids. Okay, perfect. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to add in some of this liquid, and then we're gonna do it just a little bit at a time so it starts to thicken. So you can stir and then you'll scrape the bottom. Perfect, I'm gonna add the rest. Okay. So right now we have like these flat top griddles that we're cooking the naan with. But if you don't have any of these like kinds of griddles at home, you can also use just like a non-stick pan. Just know that don't make it bigger than the pan, because then you're gonna have it like sticking up out the side. Okay, so I'm gonna add just a little bit more water. Okay, and so once all the liquid has been added in, we're gonna let it come back to a boil. Once it comes back to a boil, we add in the canned corn, and then we're gonna add in the carrots. And then seasonings and ulu is always going to be last. That's the part that really doesn't need to be cooked super long. Okay, let me open all of these. And the corn that we're using, I mean, we're using canned sweet corn, but by all means, if you want to use like fresh Eva sweet corn, that also works as well. This is just a lot faster, and you're not, once again, you're not really worrying about something having to be cooked, yeah? Okay. And this recipe doesn't have any meat in it. If you would like to add meat, that's always an option. One of the things that I always tell a lot of my participants when I have workshops is like, the recipes that I provide are just kind of bases for you guys to play around with. It's something for you to start at. If you want to add, take away, make it different, however you guys want, that's what these recipes are here for. So like for these chowders, like usually I add bacon, but for today I didn't add bacon. You can make it with chicken, you can make it with pork, you can make it with beef if you want, ground beef. I've even seen, not gonna be vegan anymore, but yeah. But at this point right now, it's considered vegetarian. You can use vegetable stock or mushroom stock instead of chicken stock. But for chicken stock, it adds just that little bit extra umami for this recipe because the rest of the ingredients are all vegetables, yeah? And even the milk is coconut milk, so it's sweeter, right? So we do have to add a little bit extra seasoning and salt for the purpose of this recipe. Okay. Gotta add the garlic butter. So actually really cool, the ulu leaf, there's a company that just started making tea with it. So they have ulu leaf and mamaki and citrus. I did not even know that you could eat the leaf, but apparently there is a company that's making tea by dehydrating the leaf and then they're making a tea out of it. So it's super cool, super interesting thing. Another cool nutrition fact about ulu is that ulu has one of the lowest glycemic indexes for a starch, meaning that those that have diabetes or have the blood sugar, the ulu doesn't affect them as much as if they eat like white rice or other potatoes. So when it comes to nutrition, we have a program in Wahiawā called Food as Medicine. And so we can actually prescribe food to people as their medicine for health conditions that they have. Yeah. So it's a super awesome program. And so we've prescribed like canoe crops, we've prescribed like certain vegetables. In Wahiawā we have 3 large organic producers. So we have Ma'o Organic, we have Kahumana, and then we have another one that's Mountain View. So we're able to source from our local producers and then also give it to our community. So ulu is also one of the ones that we can prescribe when it's in season from our local farmers to the community as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll let it fully boil and then we're gonna add in the corn and the carrots. I'm gonna add the garlic in real quick. That's garlic butter.
Yeah, that's the good amount.
Okay. Yeah, so everything can go in now. But yeah, so these are 2 really unique ways to consume ulu. The flour itself, actually, let me pass that around so you can look at it. Where did it go? So you guys can take like a quick whiff of the flour. It smells it's like an intense like ulu smell. Don't put your nose in it though, because it will go like right up. So it's the ulu flour is really fine. So because the way that they process the ulu too is a lot different than how they do the other flours. So it's dehydrated after it's been cooked, milled, and sifted through multi-levels, so that they continue to sift it until it's this really nice fine flour at the very end. Yeah. So with the recipe, especially when you're making it like a larger portion as well, you don't always have to increase physically as the recipe says. So you always kind of taste and test and look at it as you go. Because like, especially when it comes to salt, you'd never increase exactly as the recipe will tell you, because sometimes that's too salty. So sometimes you have to add just a little bit less and you go to taste, especially if you're doing a recipe like more than 4 times over. So like for this recipe, we're doing this at a 5 time. So I'm not gonna add like 5 times the amount of salt because that might be too much. So you just start little by little and you taste as you go. And that's just the rule of thumb when it comes to all forms of cooking. Always taste as you go. Like you can cook it, you can smell it, and you're looking at it and like, oh, it's gonna be super good. You taste it and you're like, oh, not good at all, right? And so like one of the keys is tasting as you go so that you know what you're gonna be serving for everyone. Yeah. Okay, once we add ulu, we'll add salt. Perfect, yeah, like that's someone. There you go, perfect. So when we process ulu, I'll switch it this way. So as hot as it is, it's easiest to do it when it's still pretty warm. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your knife and when it's raw still, right, you cannot curve the knife around it as easily. So with this, you can actually curve the knife going around and it removes the core, right? And so there's still some left over. And so you just keep trimming until most of that core is out. And so you can see all of these pores, yeah? So these pores inside of the ulu is what allows it to absorb anything that it goes into. And so this variety specifically, the core itself is smaller. Even when they get bigger, sometimes the core remains a really small size. So we're just going until none of this remains. The core is edible, but in culinary we call it not palatable. So it's not the best texture to consume, but it is considered edible, yeah? And so then when you're gonna go into the skin portions, what we like to do sometimes is, with this quarter, you're gonna cut it one more time in half. And then you can run a knife starting from the edge. And you're kind of peeling it like that. And you're moving the skin in one go. Yeah, like that. And like same thing, right? The skin is edible, but if you don't like the skin, you don't have to add it in. For us, for today, for this chowder, we're gonna add it in too because it also holds some of the pieces together. But this skin too, like if you wanna just try just with the skin and a little bit of ulu, you guys can try that too. All of this is up for game. So, but if anyone wants to practice like trying to process an ulu, feel free to come forward and you can try them. But we're serving almost like how like Dole's like plates up their pineapples. Basically, you're just cutting them into like the strips here. Okay, and you just run a knife through the bottom. Okay. And because these ulu were a little bit younger, they're soft, but they're still a little bit firm. Whereas like these ones were a lot more mature when they were ready. So even after they've been reheated, they're really soft. You can press into them, yeah? This one, not so much. It almost crumbles rather than smashes because this one was a lot younger. Okay. So we're just gonna keep processing, going through, straight down the center. Okay. And if you're gonna make them into French fries, so some people actually will try to fry them in its raw state. It's possible, but they actually get really hard. So if you were to steam them first, you actually retain a lot more of the moisture, so you get like a nice crispy exterior with a soft inside. When it comes to raw, sometimes they just come out really dry. So that's one of the downsides of making ulu fries. Sometimes is that it can get overly dry because of all the pores that are inside of it. Whereas like when you're cooking a potato, it has all flat surfaces. There's no air for it to escape from. The ulu has all of these pores in the center of it, so that allows air to go through it, which makes it a lot drier than some other starches. Okay. Let's leave that one whole. For the rest, I'm gonna leave the skin on just because it processes a lot faster. Okay. And so this one, when it first started, right, it was white, and then when it was cooked, it turned yellow. So it indicates it could be potentially a different variety because of its color at its finished product. Whereas like these ones, when they were cooked, they were white. Yeah. So same kind of produce, but different variety, right? So kind of the cool take on that. And feel free to come up. You can try some of these as we go. Already? Don't be scared. Come as you go. So this is going to be the one that we just cooked, and then this is one that was cooked, frozen, and reheated.
Okay.
And so when you have this one that's like with the seed, yeah, you can basically just, well, now that it's been cooked, the seed almost separates from its lining, so you can just pop it right out, and it's super easy to process. Whereas before, you're trying to fight it to get the seed out. Okay, there you go. So we're gonna wrap up these demos here. So the naan is done, the ulu has been cooked, and then the last step to finish the chowder is you're just adding in all of this ulu. I will make a demo portion so you guys can kind of see what that looks like. And then feel free to have some samples. But that basically does wrap up kind of like this series of our canoe crop cooking demo. So mahalo, thank you guys for coming out. And I hope that this kind of maybe hopefully changes your views of a crop that maybe you guys have seen before, eaten before, and makes you want to eat it more, yeah? And even if this isn't the season, right, you can still find some people that have trees that have ulu. Now you know what the fruit looks like, you know its history, so you get to kind of experiment. And one of the biggest things for us as chefs is like we want to be able to inspire you guys as the community to be able to eat more, yeah. Eat more of our products, you know, taste, be experimental on your own at home. because, you know, you just have fun when you're cooking, yeah? Okay, perfect.
All right, there you have it. So yeah, we have ulu chowder with ulu naan. Looks beautiful. Just in kind of wrapping it up, want to thank Chef Chris Fujimoto again for being here and for sharing all his knowledge and his passion around ulu. You know, you're more than welcome. Everyone, please stay, eat, hang out. Thank you all for coming again tonight. Thanks to the center staff, Leeward Community College's Educational Media Center for documenting tonight. And that really is a wrap. So, and for more information on the work that Chef Chris does with the Ulu Cooperative, you can go to eatbreadfruit.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll have some more info cards about the center. We have a monthly newsletter where we put all the information for our workshops like this, webinars, events we do. So please follow our newsletter. We're also on Instagram. Our handle is Wahiawā Food Innovation. So please follow us there as well. So thanks all. Have a good night, and let's get eating.